This is a test for the Houston Community College Board of Trustees meeting. The board meeting will begin soon. Please wait. This is a test.
It's on.
Trustees Charlene Johnson and Dave Wilson, and alternate Dr. Cynthia Lettengary. A citizen desiring to appear before the Board of Trustees shall complete the hearing of citizens form 24 hours prior to the meeting and file said application with the Board Services Office. There are no citizens signed up to speak before the Academic and Student Affairs Committee today. Is there a motion to approve item A, approve honorary degrees for 2024? Is there a second? I'll second. It has been moved and seconded. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, members of the board. This item presents an update for your approval of honorary degree recipients for the 2024 spring commencement ceremony. With your approval, Mr. Chair, Dr. Norma Perez, Interim Senior Vice Chancellor for Instruction and Student Services, will present the item. Dr. Perez.
Thank you, Chancellor. Trustees, Chairman, Mr. Chairman. The names of the individuals have been given. They're in your, on the notice. But there are 4 individuals that are being recognized by our trustees. The first one is Sheriff Ed Gonzalez, who was nominated by Trustee Monica Riker. And just to give you you'll be able to read a small introduction about these individuals. Sheriff Gonzalez is a lifetime Houstonian, started his journey in public service at the Houston Police Department, first as a civilian, then as a peace officer, homicide detective, hostile negotiator, and sergeant. After nearly 2 decades of service as a peace officer, Sheriff Gonzalez won a seat on the Houston City Council, serving 3 terms as the representative for residents in District H, an area north and east of downtown Houston. As a city councilman, he chaired the Public Safety and Homeland Security Committee and was appointed Mayor Pro Tem. He was instrumental in creating the Houston Recovery Center, a diversion facility where people with public intoxication cases connect with a recovery coach, rather than going to jail. Sheriff Gonzalez continues to identify critical tools and search for creative ways to improve public safety. His commitment to a more effective, equitable, and thoughtful approach to peacekeeping has served as a model across the state and country. The second nominee or recommendation is Janice Weaver, nominated by Trustee Charlene Johnson. Janice Weaver is known for her tireless good work in the community, Christian, humanitarian, and commitment to help others are all metaphors used to describe Janice Weaver. With a vast amount of corporate and community outreach experience, she currently serves the City of Houston, working in the Office of the City Controller, Chris Hollins. She most recently was the Director of Community Relations for the City of Houston and former Mayor Sylvester Turner. Previously, she served as an executive assistant and office manager for Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee, 18th Congressional District of Texas, and earlier retired from AT&T after 24 years of faithful service. The third representative is Brad Scarface Jordan, nominated by Trustee Lalo Davis. Scarface-born Brad Jordan is a rapper from the South Acres neighborhood in Houston, Texas, originally known for his work as a member of the Ghetto Boys. The Texas storyteller pioneered what would become known as Southern rap in the early 1990s through his work with this Houston group. Note to mention a solo career that has brought 11 albums, 3 platinum, 4 gold. He headed up Def Jam South from 1999 to 2003. Scarface's musical journey extends far beyond rap and hip-hop as he grew up around a collection of family members who played in bands and encouraged him to pick up the guitar and basses as a kid. Scarface is widely regarded as one of the greatest hip-hop artists of all time and has had a huge influence on the generation. His influence can still be heard today in many up-and-coming rappers who have cited him as an inspiration. Scarface continues to make music. And the last recommendation is Beverly Mitchell Jackson, nominated by Dr. Vanderbilt Star Wars. Beverly Mitchell Jackson is heavily involved in serving her community. She is currently the president of the 5416 Southeast chapter of AARP and serves as the president of the Young at Heart Community Organization. In these roles, she leads over 165 seniors. She consistently advocates for seniors and organizes eventful activities and trips to help them stay engaged. Beverly has over 35 years of experience in the retail and travel industries. She showcases her entrepreneurial spirit working as an independent agent for Elaine's Travel Time, where she provides travel arrangements for clients. She has extensive experience as a manager in the retail industry. Those are the 4 recommendations by the trustees.
Any questions? All right, we are ready to vote on item A, approve honorary degrees for 2024. Voting is open. Committee members, please cast your vote.
Is Trustee Johnson on?
Yes, that's a yes for me.
Oh, okay, in order,
Chair.
we'll need the camera on in order to cast your vote.
It's not on? Oh, I'm sorry. Can you see me now?
Yes.
Okay, that's a yes for me.
Received.
Thank you.
The motion passed with a vote of 201, 2 in favor, with Trustee Wilson abstaining.
Next item is item B, operational and student experience improvements to simplify student enrollment processes. This is a report item. No action is required. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, trustees. This item presents strategies to simplify the enrollment process for prospective students. A thorough review of other colleges throughout the state was conducted, as well as a review and discussion at the executive team meeting. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I will ask Dr. Villagrán Glover, Interim Vice Chancellor for Student Services and President of the Southeast College, to present the item. Thank you, Dr. Villagrán Glover.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good afternoon, members of the Board of Trustees. Thank you for the opportunity to provide an update on our efforts to streamline the student enrollment process at HCC. As outlined in our strategic plan, promoting student success and creating a welcoming environment are top priorities. A streamlined enrollment experience is critical to achieving our goals of making HCC the community college of choice for our community and supporting our mission of providing an accessible, affordable education for all. Since assuming the interim vice chancellor role for student services last semester, and in partnership with college presidents and staff districts, we have had the opportunity to closely examine our enrollment processes. And under the leadership of our new chancellor, Dr. Margaret Ford Fisher, our team has diligently working across divisions to simplify procedures, enhance communication, and remove unnecessary barriers. Our focus has been on eliminating pain points for students, optimizing efficiencies, and putting students first in all that we do. I am pleased to share that this cross-functional collaboration we made, meaning progress, updating our digital systems, consolidating redundant steps, and improving guidance for students. Data analysts and stakeholder feedback has also informed continuous enhancements. Additionally, I'm excited to announce our partnership with the Trellis Foundation. Through their support, we are developing a comprehensive strategic enrollment management plan at no cost to the college. Later in our presentation, you will see a redesigned student-centric enrollment website developed by our own marketing and communications team. While more work lies ahead, we are confident these changes will help streamline the onboarding experience and remove obstacles that previously prevented students from achieving their educational goals. We appreciate your ongoing support as we work to bring more learners through HCC doors. Now, I would like to invite Associate Vice Chancellor Dr. Betty Fortune, who will present our enrollment updates in more detail. Dr. Fortune.
Thank you, Dr. Glover, Mr. Chairman, members of the Trustee Board, Chancellor, members of the Executive Cabinet. I would like to call your attention to the work around simplifying the operation and student experience for all students that are trying to enroll at HCC. For several years now, we have been taking a look at our enrollment processes to see where improvements could be made after hearing from our students as well as our staff members about barriers to enrollment process. To that end, we incorporated this work into our quality enhancement plan. Thus, a study was able to be conducted from a company called Interact Communications. This company did a study that involved focus groups of students that had applied but had not enrolled in our college. It also incorporated student surveys, taking a look at our face-to-face interactions by visiting our campuses. It also took into consideration our online and applied Texas process. What you're going to see now are the results of that survey, along with the recommendations from the company, as well as at the end of the presentation, we're going to share with you our current work around making improvements on our current Apply and Pay web page. So this was the task that we approached. We wanted to eliminate confusion because students tell us sometimes when they're looking at the information on the web page, it's confusing. And so they don't know what to do next. We wanted to increase transparency by making sure that the information that they saw was clear. It's a clean-cut process step in this process, and that students are able to walk through it, or either we would provide support to them as they're walking through it. If they needed additional services, we wanted to be able to find out where they needed those services and be able to provide them. So what you're going to see are some recommendations that talks about strategies that we're going to use to enhance the communication process, sending timely reminders, virtual information sessions, social media platforms, and an FAQ around frequently, of course, asked questions. We want to also assess this work at the end of the day to find out, is this really working? So these are the 6 buckets that you're going to see that we are going to be working on. The first bucket we're going to talk about in a bit is the operational processes that are behind the 6 steps that every college uses. So where are they getting stuck in that process? And are our automated services working? Recommendations that came from the company about the student experience sometimes is not so pleasant for some of our students when they're trying to enroll, and how can we make that better for them? Possible use of appointment-based advising, and there was a lot of recommendations about improvements by the way of professional development, and of course, lastly, enrollment webpage redesign. So these are the 6 buckets that I'm about to share with you. The first one is about the operational process, and remember that this information that I'm sharing came from the study of students that had applied but they were not able to enroll. So this is their feedback on how we can make this better. So at the end of the day, the company said one thing that we needed to do is to clarify staff roles and responsibilities. There was some confusion about who was on first and who was on second. So they're recommending that we make sure that it's a clear delineation of what enrollment officers, admissions advisors, and pathways officers should be doing. Then secondly, to provide clear guidelines and instructions associated with the steps that we're going to show you how we intend to attack that with the web pages. Build strategies that makes the experience more personalized, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I talk with everyone, but if I respond to someone, it should mean that I am a person behind this message and you can call me. So making the information to be more personalized to the students, because one thing that they did say to us in the study was sometimes I don't get a response, and when I do get one, it doesn't tell me who it's coming from. So it's just a generalized statement, and we want to correct that. enhance our communication and interactivity with students. Some of them were saying they were confused, didn't know who to call. So we want to make sure that communication is available to students to let them know as they're walking through this process, we are here for you. Develop, of course, the website redesign that I'll show you in just a bit. We want to improve our student service delivery process. One of the things that they said in this study was that oftentimes if they call and they do get an answer and they have to be transferred, oftentimes when they are transferred, there is no one there to be transferred to. And so messages cannot be left. And so improving that service is one of the things that they did recommend. And they wanted us to make sure we establish performance metrics, which we have not done in the past. We want to do that, to establish these metrics so that we can ensure that when we go back and measure what we are about to do, that it is working or it's not working, and how can we enhance it. So that's operational processes. Secondly, they recommended that we do some improvements on our automated services. One of those things was to streamline business processes, which sometimes were not working. Again, one of that's because of the triage that was happening, the phone tree processes, and some other processes that they talked about could be improved through basic customer services. One thing that they did talk about in the study was sometimes they would call and the person would answer very politely, but they would never say their name, so they don't know who they're talking to, and they didn't ask their name. So those kinds of things are things that you'll see we'll talk about when we talk about the professional development around customer services. We are about to utilize the My One Flow because we don't have a automated process for tracking the students once they apply. Everything is done manually through our smart sheets that we have. And so an automated system is really something needed. They recommended a CRM, but at this point we want to, in the interim, we want to utilize the My One Flow product, which is about to be, we hope will be launched in April. The next one was we're going to include in this more automated nudges through our work with the Trellis Foundation, and we do want to employ artificial intelligence on this page so that if students can't get a hold of someone, there is a chat bot that they can ask questions to and get their answers. Next, they wanted us to focus on a positive student experience for students, again, providing easy access to enrollment information, which I hope that what you see today will show you how we're making a concerted effort to make sure that that happens. We want to institutionalize what we call a We Care ethic, whereas if a student is walking around and they look confused, someone should make themselves available, whether it's your job to do or not, to say, how can we help you? So that kind of attitude, we want to have it imitated all around every college that we have, campus that we have. We want to collect feedback, and we're already deploying this survey called the College Student Inventory. We do not have a way currently by which we can collect information from students on their pain points. So we pretty much guess what students need. If you're a parent, we figure you need this. If you're homeless, we figure you need that. But this survey is going to give us information from the students themselves that will tell us what they believe that they actually need and how they need us to support them. So this is going to help us to better prepare supports and be able to make them available to students. Then we want to leverage the transformation of the Student Contact Center to be able to provide more support for students that are prospective students. To our college. We know that we have a huge number of students that are not in the high schools, and so this would be a great avenue of reaching out to those students or having a place that they could go and ask questions and get them answered right away. Again, assess the satisfaction of students with our processes. The next thing that they recommended is have a way for current students to be able to relate and communicate with their advisors. We want to move from being more transactional and reactional to relational interactions with our students. But thereby, if we have a process by where students can make an appointment to see the advisor, be it face-to-face or online, that student would be able to see their advisor at an opportune time for them. We want to be able to provide holistic student supports, and that means that when a student comes into the advisor, it's not just about career, it's about your pathway, but it's also about what do you need, how can I help you? Monitor their progress through milestones that we're going to be setting up, and again, be able to nudge more about outreach and referrals. This is one of the bigger parts that they offered us that we need to work on, and that is professional development. And these are the areas that they talked about: customer service training for all frontline staff people, cross-functional training, meaning that an enrollment officer should be able to answer questions about advising or triage that person, but be able to provide some cross-functional training so that any student coming up on the campus should not have to walk away with the question not answered. We want to also include in the professional development the notion of we care about you and that you belong here, that this is a good place for you to be. We want you here and we want to support you through your process. And again, strengthening communications and marketing process. So all of this is the professional development modules that we're going to be working out on building out and implementing at every college. I want to invite to the podium Steve Lester-Jett, who is our ABC of Communications and Marketing, I believe is the official title. And he's going to walk you through something that I believe is really, I think you will be really happy to see the changes that we are proposing, and we hope that this is going to make everything a little bit clearer for our students when they go to our Apply and Pay page. I'm going to let you introduce that, please, sir.
Thank you very much. Communications and marketing has had a wonderful, it's thankful to have a wonderful part of this great project. As you know, it's been hard for students, prospective students, to get through our website, get on that Apply and Pay page, get all through that information. So on January the 11th, we were called to the Chancellor's office and given a charge to redesign those registration pages, not the process, but the pages themselves, to make it easier for students to progress through that process and get to the finish line faster. We were given specific goals to identify the starting points, identify where, so that students could see who they are, where they could start that process, not have to deal with information that doesn't apply to their area, and get straight onto the finish line for them. So we worked on starting points. We identified key paths to keep them on that registration process until they got to the end. We streamlined the content. We wrote a lot of content, made sure it was easier for students to understand. And then we went about, as the communications and marketing team, to revise the architecture that linked to the secondary information that was not necessarily pertainable at the moment, but where students could go find the information they needed if they needed additional help. And then we are working now to talk to all the stakeholders to make sure these links work. And when we roll this out, we believe on February the 29th. Sharon, can you pull up those links? And all right, so this is now your new Apply and Pay page. If you saw it before, you saw just gray and white words, lots of words. But now we have identified student starting points, such as a student would identify themselves as either first time in college, a transfer student, returning students. Sharon, scroll down a little bit. We have 9 starting points now. International students can identify there. If you're interested in continuing education, you'll see yourself there. An adult learner as well, dual credit, special admissions for minor students, and veterans. And if we identify more big groups, we'll make additional starting points for them as well. Now, Sharon, if you'll go back up to the top and click on, say, that first time at HCC, we'll just take you and show you. At the top, you see the 4 steps. We've identified 4 steps that most students take on this process. If you scroll down, Sharon, you'll see how simple it is now to understand and read the admissions process. The first line says, go to the application. It'll take you there with a click. And then you just begin your work down. It's much simpler to understand, much easier to follow. Just take these steps and we'll get you there to apply and pay. And these are the 4 steps basically that will take you through in all 9 of those student categories. Would you like to talk more about that content? Okay. All right.
So I would like to add that there are a lot of people behind the screen that have been working with us on this, and I see Dr. Sharday Campbell, who's been working on the messaging and the content for that information from student service area, along with Andrew's not here, and David Teese from communications. It's been a team effort. It's a partnership that we're working together to make sure that our students have all the information that they need. And this concludes our presentation at this time, and we'll be happy to take questions at this time.
Any questions?
Excuse me, I don't have a question, I just have a comment. I think it is truly simplified, because I remember several years ago when my son was coming here, it was like he was all over the place trying to get the application done, the entire process. But this is just like 1, 2, 3, 4. And I like that. And that's what a lot of young people, well, a lot of older people as well, who's been out of school a long time, they need the simple process. 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, and they got it. So thank you, guys.
Thank you.
I agree. Thank you for making that, thank you for making that process a lot smoother, streamlining that process.
Gonna make a big difference.
And a shout out to Miss Campbell.
Thank you.
I'd also like to pile on and just say thanks to everybody for your amazing work on that effort. It's a super important initiative for the college system. So, hearing no other questions, we'll move on to item C, update on apprenticeships and work-based learning. This is a report item. No action is required. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, trustees. Apprenticeship training and work-based learning are both parts of our HCC's training portfolio. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I will ask Senior Vice Chancellor Dr. Norma Perez and Dr. Madeline Barillo Hopkins, Vice Chancellor of Workforce Development and President of the Southwest College, to present the item, please. Dr. Barillo Hopkins, Dr. Perez, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Madam and President Ford Fisher. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to my colleague who's really the expert in the apprenticeship program. So, Dr. Barillo.
Thank you, Dr. Perez. Good afternoon, trustees, Madam Chancellor, trustees, and my colleagues. Before I start the presentation, I would like to take a moment to introduce and recognize the members of the team of the work-based learning that make this extraordinary work for HCC happen. And I'd like to start by introducing Dr. Christina Robinson and recognizing her along with her team members, Melissa Perez, Tammy Nobiles, Juliet Manning, and Maya Henderson. Would you all please stand up? They work in collaboration with our centers of excellence, with our deans and our presidents, every day in creating opportunities for students and connecting employers to our programs here. Apprenticeships are a key component of the ACC talent solution for employers, workforce needs, and a cost-effective way of developing new and in-demand skills relevant to the organizations in our region. For the student, it represents an opportunity to gain relevant experience in their field of study while training, being paid, have benefits, and connect wage progression through their stackable pathways. I always call that connecting education with their pocket. The more education they get, they can see that it has an immediate return on that time and that education. A brief historical context to this presentation. In 2014, HCC was the first community college in the Gulf Coast region to join the Registered Apprenticeship College Consortium, known as RAC, launched by the United States Department of Labor in collaboration with the Department of Education, and we became a Department of Labor Registered Apprenticeship sponsor. In 2017, ACC was the only college in Texas awarded an American Apprenticeship Initiative grant for $4.2 million, which provided an avenue for the college to develop for the first time non-traditional apprenticeship programs in information technology and pharmacy tech, in partnership with J.P. Morgan Chase and CVS Pharmacy, which serve over 620 workers in the region in collaboration with Dallas College. In 2019, ACC was one of 6 community colleges in Texas and of over 58 colleges nationwide invited by the American Association of Community Colleges to participate in their Department of Labor grant-funded Expanding Community College Apprenticeship Initiatives project. I'm proud to say that the grant period was from 2019 and 2022, and during that time, of the 6 colleges in Texas, HCC produced the largest number of apprentices during that time with 869, and also ranked number 1,
Clap, clap,
among the
clap.
national colleges. It was through those experiences that we gained during that time, through those grant projects, that we then decided work-based learning will be a key initiative in response to the needs of our employers. We already had the lessons learned, we had the experience, so we launched the work-based learning department, and they're doing an amazing work. So I'm going to ask Dr. Michael Webster, our Associate Vice Chancellor of Workforce, who leads this entire group for the organization, to come up here and give you the rest of the presentation, if you allow me that. Thank you. Dr. Webster.
All right, thank you all, I appreciate it. First of all, I just want to point out that our work with apprenticeship is one piece of a larger talent solution we offer to our employers. In addition to talking about apprenticeships and setting those up with our employer partners, when this team back here goes out to talk with employers, they talk about our contract training, our centers of excellence, our continuing education program, and our job placement services. So we want to be the talent solution provider for all of our employers. And I think that's key to what we're doing. As far as apprenticeships go, the time is really ripe right now. Just last week, as a matter of fact, the Lumina Foundation put out a white paper on apprenticeships and how community colleges can and should lead those. It's a testament to what we can do, and partly it's because, as Dr. Brilla said, they've allowed us to be the sponsor, the DOL has allowed us to be the sponsor of apprenticeships. And I'm really proud to report that HCC is leading the way in apprenticeships across the nation. Last August, we set up the Gulf Coast Region Apprenticeship Hub. This is a place where employers and career seekers can go and get matched up, if you will, to start an apprenticeship. It's a one-stop shop for anybody looking to add apprenticeships, whether on the career seeker side or the employer side. It's shown much dividends thus far. We're generating leads on a regular basis, generally just from organic pushes on social media. And just to give you a sense of what it takes to start up an apprenticeship, it runs about 6 months for us to get it going. So we set up a lead with an employer, meet with them, and we start immediately setting things up. Outlining our priorities with the employer. We then define the occupations that they're looking at. We have to set up the standards that the DOL is requiring. And then we do the recruitment, the hiring, and the onboarding of the apprentices. So these folks start out immediately with their training at the same time in work. Our teams, the team back here works side by side with the employer, and then all of the deans and instructional leaders at the colleges to get students into the apprenticeships. Just some recent apprenticeships we've started. You see a chef apprenticeship, patient care, solar tech, diesel tech, human resource professional. All of these are new programs over the last year. New clients that we've added on as well, Alcon, Lexus Automotive, Target, JAS, which is a logistics company. All of these folks are coming on with apprenticeships in these fields I mentioned earlier. And I think one of the things that's key is that these are non-traditional apprenticeships. They're not construction-based for the most part, or construction trade-based for the most part. And that's serving to do something a little bit different than you typically see in apprenticeships, and that's why it's becoming a pretty fashionable model for employers. We take on the burden of the administration and the compliance for the employer. They get the benefit of brand loyalty, brand and company loyalty, increased productivity, and a lower turnover rate just out of setting up their apprenticeship. So we know that's a good thing. We continue to work with our union partners that we've had almost as long as the college has been in place. From the asbestos workers, the cement masons, the iron workers. Somebody back here was saying that the butcher, the baker, the cabinet stick maker. No, we're not working with them yet, but we'll get there. But definitely all of our union partners. And we are seeing an uptick in duplicated enrollment from these folks. And I would say this is significant because it's the work that this team is doing to liaise with them on a regular basis that quite wasn't there before. I'm going to pause for a minute just to highlight one of our employer partners that signed on, and they've done several apprenticeships already. That's MD Anderson. We've got a little story on Channel 13, ABC News, that we're going to tee up. And just so you know, the anchor, we were just talking, Todd and I were just talking that the anchor was a former HCC student and worked for HCC TV, Brittany Wilmore. So just a little teaser there too. So.
Well, how do consistent pay increases and full benefits sound? If you're in an apprenticeship, that could become your reality.
So today we are looking at a path that could lead to a bigger payday and a career, even if you don't have a degree.
ABC 13's senior digital producer, Brittany Wilmer, spoke to one mom who found an apprenticeship allowed her to answer a greater call to service.
I love my job.
Victoria Steffen was a stay-at-home mom until her son came home from the military and wanted to get into the medical field. So they took an X-ray tech course together.
He didn't want to do it alone, so I did it with him. And I ended up loving it.
Steffen started working, but was diagnosed with breast cancer in 2020. When she did return, her employer at the time recommended she try phlebotomy to gain more skills. That led her to Houston Community College's Gulf Coast Region Apprenticeship Hub.
We connect you with an employer, you're getting the benefits, you're getting the salary as long as you're making the commitment to complete that credential. Most the salaries are going to range between $18 to $25 an hour for entry, right? That's for your 1 year. But the great thing about this is when you do an apprenticeship, you get a starting wage, a middle wage, and an exit wage.
Healthcare has the most in-demand positions, but apprenticeships are available of all kinds, from artificial intelligence and IT to more traditional routes like plumbing and welding. Steffen, a phlebotomist apprentice at MD Anderson, had a mastectomy in April. She's still recovering, but keeping her smile big for her patients.
The struggle is there. I get it. And I can bring them back to sunshine, if you will.
Well, Steffen will complete her 1-year apprenticeship next February, but Dr. Robinson at HCC says there is plenty of room for more people. There is a talent shortage. In fact, there's also a push to increase the amount of women in apprenticeships. In fact, she says some of HCC's partners will pay for childcare and gas cards to help people get back into the classroom and ultimately a career. Live in the newsroom, I'm Brittany Wilmore. Back to you.
So one other healthcare provider that we've launched an apprenticeship with is Harris Health, and they have started with a patient care tech program. We've got 17 students involved in that right now, and then they're going to expand to some of the other fields of study in healthcare. They just launched with their own name in the REACH program, and it looks to be a success. Just in short, we've got 65 clients right now, offering 37 apprenticeships, and the enrollment, as I said earlier, is up around over 6,000. And then in October, we took home the National Council for Workforce Education Exemplary Program Award for the Gulf Coast Region Apprenticeship Hub. That's probably the most prestigious award for workforce in community colleges. So it was a testament to the hard work the team back here has put in, and definitely an achievement we're proud of. And then the last thing I'll speak to is our second annual Gulf Coast Region Apprenticeship Summit. It happened in November. Some folks were there from the board. And it was an opportunity for employers and students and our COEs to interact together to talk about setting up apprenticeships. We look to do that again as an annual event. We also set up awards for our employers. So as a way to kind of pique the interest of employers to join up and get a Gulf Coast Apprenticeship Award. So that's it for an update on the apprenticeships today. I'll answer any questions you might have.
That's a good job.
I do have one question before we let you go.
Yeah.
So I want to pick at one small comment that was made in the WAB this week, and again, appreciate y'all answering all my questions every time we meet like this. And it's linked to the comment that you made that HCC has taken on the administrative and compliance burden for the employers so that they have less or fewer regrets getting into an arrangement like this. In the WAB, y'all mentioned that capacity and staff and faculty can be a limiting factor for processing even more of this amazing opportunity for our student body. We're in a budget cycle. We've got a discussion on that later tonight. And I'm curious, what can we do in terms of budget, staffing, et cetera, to help, set your program up for even more success? What barriers can we help remove in that regard?
Thank you, Trustee, for that question. I think as we work through the budget process, we will work with the Chancellor in terms of looking at resources. And our team is doing a phenomenal job, and we look at being very prudent on any requests, but we will work directly with the Chancellor and any assessments of any needs that we may have to bring forward to the board. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
It would be interesting to know the number of referrals that we have based on the number in comparison to the number of placements that we actually make. So what does that percentage look like?
The number of student referrals or number of employers?
Number,
or both?
Well, both sides, because first of all, the total number of employers is what?
We're at 65 employers right now. The Gulf Coast Apprenticeship Hub has generated over 160. So we're working those. When I say 65, those are the ones that have already signed on. The others we're working right now.
And the reason why I asked the question is because I worked in 2019 with the apprenticeship program with the unions. They had a program, and I actually recruited for them. So it was not a difficult recruit, but they had a broader brushstroke of what they were offering in terms of apprenticeships after you completed their 6-week program. I think it was 6 weeks. So it would be interesting to know the number of referrals for students versus the number of students we actually received. And then how many more, if we have 65, and 65 is a good start, where are the other companies in terms of what we offer? How are we aligning? Because I see some of the stackable programs, but some of our programs have not quite transitioned into that stackable academic or skills and trades arrangement where they can do 3 credentials of value, keep their job for 3 to 4 years, and move up with increase in pay.
Yeah, well, I would just say that the ones in healthcare, they get the stackable piece pretty well. So, they're hiring in at CNA or patient care techs and then moving, they were talking about doing LBN and then RN apprenticeships as well. So there is a natural progression there. IT is similar. You start with some of the, basic Cloud Plus and whatnot. So that's, in these non-traditional fields that haven't seen it, we're starting with the entry-level piece and then moving them into they don't have like a electrical journeyman, right? I mean, we're setting up the credentials for them.
So we are establishing the electrical journeyman path.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a 4-year program, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I'm very familiar with that one. I'm also familiar with the healthcare piece because we always, for some reason, everybody always thinks about nursing when there are how many, where is Dr. Nicotero? How many healthcare programs do we have, Dr. Nicotero?
We have 24 right now.
So we're focused on nursing and we have 24 programs. And are those programs stackable from the CNA level or do you have to do something different?
No, they can be stackable from CNA.
Okay. That's it. That's what I need to know. Thank you.
Yeah, one of the ones that was just offered up from one of our partners is the radiology technician. So they're looking at that as an apprenticeship. So definitely there's a path there.
And if I may add, prior to the pandemic, a conversation with employer was a little bit more difficult in terms of utilizing the apprenticeship model as a talent strategy for their organizations, and never waste a crisis. So with labor being as hard to obtain, It has really allowed us an opportunity to open doors with employers in the conversation as a talent solution, upskilling and reskilling as well. And we strategically are embedding the credentials of value when we meet with those employers to make sure the participants are also have an added value in participating as apprentices in terms of their college career and their pathways.
Okay, so it would be good for the board to know the number of referrals. I think we should probably have that versus the number of people that were actually placed, so that we understand what we need to do as a board in terms of interfacing with business and industry and bringing more businesses and industries on board to take care of those who were not referred to placement.
Yeah, and I will say, Trustee Vanderbilt, we're also working with the community-based organizations and our faith-based organizations to increase awareness. We find many individuals in the community are not aware of this pathway to go to college, and it provides, like we said earlier, an opportunity to work while they learn and being able to work very closely with an employer that provides them a long-term career opportunity with that employer. We're not only recruiting through our centers of excellence, but we're going out and talking with CBOs and faith-based organizations to help us increase that awareness in the community. So we know you will be a great advocate in that, and we know we look forward to everyone continue to refer individuals to our programs, because we can really help them start a career with a job that they need.
We will see the number of referrals versus the number that were placed, and we will be able, as a board, to engage the CEOs of the corporations that we personally know or we professionally interface with, so that we can increase the number of people. Are high school students allowed to do this?
So that's a great question, and I'll let you want to answer that? So the Department of Labor has they can do pre-apprenticeships. Because there's some labor restrictions on participating on an apprenticeship per se, but we are engaging on pre-apprenticeship pathways for the longer apprenticeship journey. So
Okay.
there's some age restrictions on that.
Some age restrictions in some of
Yes.
the industries, but not all. Not in every industry.
For a registered apprenticeship, they require 18 and up.
Okay.
So, the DOL will do a registered pre-apprenticeship as well for the youth.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, what does the pre-apprenticeship program look like? What does that look like?
So it's something similar that we do at Southeast. We have the Merrick Brothers Academy, and it's a dual credit academy. It's taught by a Merrick carpenter, a carpenter from Merrick, and the students pick up a level 1 certificate over their junior and senior year. It's not a registered apprenticeship, it's a pre-apprenticeship, and it's sponsored by Merrick. So the nuance there is basically just because they're not old enough, the DOL won't sign them up on a register.
So how does this affect Case Trio? Case Trio has, from what I understand, has been very successful in Spring Branch, which is a service area and not a taxing district. But it's been in place for many years for high school students. So the question is, when is that going to matriculate into the taxing regions so that constituents in the taxing region with children that are in high school that want to take skills and trades can participate? And how does that work if we're going to increase the number of dual credit students? We're going to need that matriculation. So how has a plan been formulated to grow that part of this apprenticeship program?
Mr. Chair, may I speak? Thank you so very, very much. I'd like to respond to the question because in conversation with the HISD superintendent, that is an area that he is very much interested in. Dr. Perez, Dr. Young, and I met with him, and we provided the list of all of the apprenticeships that are available. He is yet to get back in touch with us, but we were interested in pursuing that for the high school students. But in addition to that, we were looking at some of the other training programs that we have that he indicated that he would be more than delighted to transport the students to those locations in order to enroll in the programs in addition to the apprenticeships. But in conversation also with the Greater Houston Partnership and Peter Beard, he indicated that now they are beginning to focus really totally on the apprenticeships with businesses throughout the area. And that way, though, that training would be subsidized, and that would open up the opportunity for us to have even more apprentices who would be coming through to us.
That is very, very important, especially when we were in high school, which, not us. Our students, they did do skills and trades in high school, so there were no restrictions. So this restriction thing is a concern. If Case Trio has been successful in the Spring Branch district for all of these years, then it should be successful in the taxing districts for the rest of these years. And it's not moving. So that's a real challenge and a real issue I have. It's not moving.
If we may, we'd like to ask Dr. Robinson to provide some additional information on the work that's being done with dual credit and the school districts.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Brillo. Good afternoon. We are working very closely with HISD, as the Chancellor mentioned. We recently were at their CTE Business Advisory Council, where we're partnering together both with the businesses there at HISD, as well as with our apprenticeship team to build out the pre-apprenticeship model. We've actually been working with them for about 2 years on this endeavor, but as you know, there's been a lot of changes, right? Both HISD, Southwest Schools, Fort Bend ISD, A-Leaf and Spring Branch all participated in our summit, and we are now going from ISD to ISD to start building out those pre-apprenticeships. We have some drafts that we've been working on, but it takes some time to get that done. But our every intent is to get that launched in just, as a matter of fact, as of the other day, we signed a letter with HISD to support them in a grant initiative that they're applying for specifically for this endeavor. So I just wanted to give you that update.
And for a final note, A-Leaf ISD, in an extensive conversation with them, they were interested in expanding, but allegedly there seems to be a space issue, of which we have space, we have capacity. But what I'd like to see is these programs through our high schools, because our students, if we allow them to leave high school unprepared, they've spent an average of 12 years remaining unprepared before they figure out they need to do something. So it would be great if we could engage them in high school. And I'm really appreciative of talking to HISD, talking to A-Leaf, talking to Fort Bend, talking to Spring Branch for these expansions. And my real reason for that is that there should be no way that Dallas College should have over 20,000 early college, high school, and dual credit students, and we have less than 6. That's not acceptable. So we've got a lot of work to do. And if Dallas can do it, I am sorry, we just cannot be a distant fourth. We should be much more robust. And I would expect to see that, and I know that you all are capable of producing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next is item D, reporting schedule for Academic and Student Affairs Committee for 2024. This is also a report item. No action is required. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair, trustees. This item reports on feedback from our chair of the committee, Trustee Sheehan, regarding the Student Academic and Student Affairs Committee to target vital success metrics that will inform the board as each item aligns with our strategic priorities. With your permission, Mr. Chair, I will ask Dr. Perez and Dr. Burris to present the report. Dr. Perez. Dr. Burris.
Thank you, Chancellor, Mr. Chairman, and trustees. We have put together in your packet a list of topics of what we believe the Academic and Student Affairs Committee would be interested in. And so these are just some suggestions based on the request of the chairman. So this is for you to discuss and to give us some feedback in reference to whether these were appropriate or whether you want to see other topics presented to you. We've also designated the month that we would present this to you. And again, this is basically on what the chairman has requested. It doesn't mean that we will only do this presentation, but this is one of the presentations we want to ensure is presented in any given month. So we present this to you for discussion and to give us some direction.
I'd just like to make one comment on that. A, I really appreciate y'all pulling this together. And second, just the intent with getting this in front of the committee is to really get that input and feedback. So we have kind of an agreed upon calendar going through the rest of the year and into next. So no intent for this to be at all cast in stone, really intent for us to have some homework to think about in March so we can come back and nail this down in April. So.
I have one comment. Can you all, the reports, can you tie them to the risk register that we now have so that we understand how this is impacted through the risk register? Since Dr. Burge and Mr. Corrigan and, where's my third gentleman? Mr. McCracken, way back there. So can you tie these to the risks so that we understand the ebb and flow of both? And that would be really great for us to keep track of.
Mr. Chair, I would like to respond. I think this is something that obviously, with the board's permission, we will go ahead and proceed in that discussion with Mr. Corrigan and Mr. McCracken to ensure that we can indeed align this with the risk register, and then we'll bring it back to the board. With your approval, we'll proceed.
Any other questions or comments on the schedule for 2024? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The Academic and Student Affairs Committee meeting is adjourned at
3:57 p.m.
Did you all need a break? Or shall we continue? Oh, perfect. The meeting of the Audit Committee for February 14th, 2024 will now come to order at
3:58 p.m.
The meeting was called for the purposes listed on the duly posted meeting notice. I'm Dr. Prieta Vanderbilt Stallworth, Chair of the Audit Committee for 2024. The other committee members are Trustees Monica Reichler and Dave Wilson, and our alternate is Trustee Eva Laredo. The opportunity for public comments. Citizens desiring to appear before the Board of Trustees shall complete the hearing of citizen form 24 hours prior to the meeting and file said application with Board Services Office. There are no citizens signed up to speak before the Audit Committee today. Topics for discussion and/or action. We will begin with item A, orientation, the internal audit and charters. This is a report item. No action is required. Chancellor Ford Fisher.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees. This item presents information, as was indicated, on HCC's internal audit functions, the audit committee responsibilities, and the two charters. With your permission, Madam Chair, Mr. Terrence Corrigan will present the item. Mr. Corrigan.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good afternoon, Madam Chair and trustees. So, as the Chancellor indicated, this is an orientation to the internal audit department and the governing charters. So this is the first time we've had the luxury of all the members of the audit committee having had previous experience on the audit committee. So I would expect that you are very familiar with this information already. So the organization chart for internal audit, we have 4 members of our department, and they are detailed in this organization chart here. We report directly to the audit committee chair and administratively to the chancellor. So we have a staff of 7, and we have very diverse experience in the department. This slide basically details years of experience in different things that our auditors have experience in. What we tend to want to focus on in our department is the Certified Internal Auditor certification, and since we are internal audit, and we have 4 certified internal auditors, and we're hoping to make that 6 by the time I'm in front of you next year. But we have CPAs, we have certified information system auditors, and we have 3 certified fraud examiners on our staff. Some of the highlights of some of the experience we have. So, internal audit's vision is to be recognized as the trusted advisors for risk and internal control management. And our mission comes straight out of the International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Auditing. We want to enhance and protect HCC's value by providing risk-based and objective assurance, advice, and insight. So, the standards for International Standards for the Professional Practice of Internal Audit require that in Standard 1000, that the purpose, the authority, the responsibility of the internal audit activity must be formally defined in an internal audit charter consistent with the definition of internal auditing, the code of ethics, and the standards. The chief audit executive must periodically review the internal audit charter and present it to senior management and to the board for approval. And so that's what we will be doing. So the basis for establishing the charter are listed here. So we go through the International Professional Standards, and they have a template that we work from as well. We have our board policy, CDC, which basically regulates internal audit. And then the board bylaws specify that we'll have an internal audit committee that assists the board in fulfilling its audit oversight responsibilities of the institution. So we also review other university and colleges' charters and making sure that our charter is up to date and meets the standards. So the charters are attached in your packet. There's the Internal Audit Department Charter, and there's the Audit Committee Charter. And so I'm not going to stand here and read the charters to you. So those were provided to you. There have been no recommended changes this year to those charters. And so basically we're asking that the board, the Audit Committee in particular, review those charters, and basically they'll have until April to determine whether or not there's any changes they want to make and approve the charters. But we reviewed them thoroughly against other charters and the standards for the professional practice of internal audit, and we've found no required changes. So, like I said, to allow time for the audit committee members to review the charters, we leave it until April to bring it back and ask for the audit committee members to approve the charter and then the full board. And the charter are attached to your package. So while there were no changes or suggested changes to the charter this year, next year I expect significant changes to be proposed due to the fact that the Institute of Internal Auditors have issued in January new global internal audit standards, which we will need to be compliant with come January of next year. So we will have our work cut out for us to make whatever revisions we need to do to comply with the new global internal audit standards. So basically that's my presentation, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Committee members, do we have questions? Trustee Wilson? No questions? Trustee Laredo? I was going to ask a question and you answered it, because I looked at the chart, your organizational chart, and it looked a little tight for all the work that you have to do and the significant changes that are coming, but I understood you to say that perhaps 2 additional personnel will be added to this chart group?
No, I wish I had said that, but no.
I'm helping you out. I'm helping. I mean, I understand with the changes that we've discussed that are coming, this is going to be a lot of work for this particular board chart. So I would ask that the chancellor would take a look at what's being required for internal audit because of the very robust nature of the risk register that you all have created and the statistical analysis that has to go with it. That's another significant load of work. So if we could look at that, because I think that this organization chart is a little tight for all of that work that has to be taken care of. So you didn't have to say it, Mr. Corrigan. I could see it. So there are no more questions? Thank you, Mr. Corrigan.
Thank you.
Let's see what item B has. Internal audit status report. This is also a report item. No action is required. Chancellor Ford Fisher.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees, and of course, Mr. Corrigan is still at the podium. So this item presents the internal audit status report, and with your permission, Madam Chair, Mr. Terrence Corrigan will continue and will present this report. Mr. Corrigan.
So, this report will summarize the internal audit status information in our presentation. We have follow-up observation action plan information that's attached in your packet, and we also have follow-up information on McConnell and Jones recommendations that were made a couple of years ago. And then we have a report on external audit review activity. So since the last time I presented the status report, we issued the following reports. So we did the facilities and property information report, succession planning information report, annual Texas Higher Education Board report analysis, contracted services analysis, and less than $100,000 payments analysis. So the projects that we have right now that are in the finalization stage, we are working on finalizing the CARES Act, HERF 3 funding project that we were to finish spending down in October of 2023. So that should be a closed out fund now. We're working on finalizing the deferred maintenance report. And then in asset management, we're finalizing a report on facilities and information technology. And under special projects, we're working on new funding enrollment information, and we're getting close on that one, and complaints grievance process information. So projects that are also in progress now, we have the payment card industry data security project, which is strictly a compliance audit that there's specific regulations you need to comply with. That has to do with the cards that we issue to our students that they can use in their finances with HCC. I've been on the SB 17 new DEI regulations task force, and so that's finishing up, and I think we're in good shape there. And then IT disaster recovery audits in progress, and then special projects and examinations. There's the security program dashboard updates, which actually Bob McCracken and the Senior Vice Chancellor of Administration mainly present the progress on the initiatives that they have. And so our future planned projects will be pushing back the Title IX project because the new rules are not expected to go into effect until fiscal year 2025 now. They've been pushed back 3 times now. So they're not in place, and the whole idea of that audit was to audit against the new rules that get published. Actually, the campus safety and security and environment audit should be in audits in progress now. We have just started them. And so we will be doing those on the Central College, Northeast College, and Coleman College. And then we've also started on a student mental health audit. So projects that are waiting on programs to be implemented, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines Program. I know procurement is working on procuring a scanning tool for our IT department so they can scan our web, which is required in our regulation CR2 to scan for vulnerabilities in our access, and also a consultant who would help train people on using that tool. And then our talent engagement department is working on securing the personnel that would manage that program. And then we have the campus security and safety program that we're working on establishing. They use the Berkeley report and the Rob Uvalde report. We're trying to establish that program. The initiatives that we're working on for campus security are a product of us trying to establish that program. So, follow-up information that's in your report. You have a table in your packet that lists out all the internal audit observations that we have issued reports on, and action plans that are still open, or if they just got completed, they will indicate they've been completed. So that's how we follow up and make sure that observations and action plans are completed. And then the McConnell and Jones, you have a table on it. There's out of the 19 recommendations that McConnell and Jones had on our grants process, we have completed 18 of them. And the 19th one is to automate the grants process. That is in progress, and right now it's expected to be completed in August of this year. So things that are going on right now. So we'll be in the process of hiring a new annual financial statements auditor or external auditor. The board will be involved with that. And then regulatory imposed, we have the Houston Galveston Council, who annually they have Weaver come in and do an audit on our financial monitoring and billing review of the grants we have with them. The Texas School Safety Center performed a fall 2023 emergency operations plan review. HCC's emergency operation plan met all 64 audit item requirements. So it's good news for Mr. Bob McCracken. And then the Southern Association of Colleges Schools Commission, they have conducted site visits to complete their review of the process of our new bachelor programs. As I understand it, they visited West Loop and Coleman, I believe. That's where they went, I believe. So I guess we're still waiting on the results of that.
Chancellor, please stand. So, the Southern Association of Colleges and Schools report, they came February 5th through 8th. Did you want to comment on that?
Yes, they have come already, and we have a response from the visiting committee members. However, we are not to publicize any information until the SACS board approves the recommendation. And then at that point, we are free to make announcements and to publicize, et cetera. So we are honoring their request not to make any public statements at this time in that regard.
Excellent. Are there any comments or questions from the audit committee? I want to say that thank you for
the
this.
report, Trustee Laredo.
Trustee Laredo.
So thank you for the report. Very informative.
You're welcome.
This is an excellent report. It's very robust, and it answers a lot of questions that we've had, and we know that we can move forward with this plan and this report in terms of some of the information that has been submitted. So thank you very much. If there are no more questions, we will move to item 3, or item C, approve adding the ERM Top 10 Risk Baseline Assessment to the internal audit plan. Chancellor Ford Fisher, can you?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees. This item presents a recommendation to add the Top 10 Risk Baseline Assessment to the internal audit plan, as was indicated. And so with your permission, Madam Chair, I'll ask Mr. Corrigan to present this item as well. Thank you.
So, as you know, in January, we were asked to present on doing a baseline assessment on the top 10 risks identified in the enterprise risk management assessment that we do. And so, in order to add that to our audit plan and facilitate that, by the requirements in the International Internal Audit Standards, we are required to have the board approve adding the project to our plan. And so this is what we're doing now. We're requesting the approval to add it to the plan. So,
Are there any questions from the committee? Are there any questions from the other trustees? If there are no questions, the voting is now open.
Voting has concluded. The motion passed with a vote of 2-0.
Thank you. Our final item, item D, the report on quarterly controlling compliance attestation. A report item, no action is required. Chancellor Ford Fisher.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees. This item is, as you indicated, Madam Chair, a quarterly report and compliance attestation update. So with your permission, once again, I will invite, in this instance, General Counsel Ashley Smith to present the report. Thank you, Dr. Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chancellor, Madam Chair, and trustees. Quarterly report being presented to you today is our regular attestation report. We have no items to bring before the board. We do want to call to your attention that we did mitigate a situation that was called to our attention in a report where there was a late filing. The report was one that it had no external requirements. It's an internal requirement we had on our own. Mr. David Cross had been the initiator of a report in the past. Subsequently to his initiating the report, it was the report was completed by Student Services. With David Cross's departure, the initiation of the report was delayed, and we have mitigated this by reinstating the obligations and reassigning the obligations so that student services in the future will take care of this report. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Committee members, are there any questions? Trustees, are there any questions? Then thank you, Mr. Smith. We appreciate it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
And there is no executive session, so we will not adjourn to a closed or executive session. So the meeting of the audit committee is now adjourned at
4:21 p.m.
Meeting for February the 14th, 2024 will now come to order at
4:22 p.m.
This meeting was called for the purpose that's listed on the duly posted meeting notice. I am happy to have been elected to serve as board chair for 2024. Also serving on the executive committee are trustees Lalu Davies as vice chair and Dave Wilson, who's the secretary. We look forward to a wonderful, successful year. A citizen desiring to appear before the Board of Trustees shall complete the hearing of citizens form 24 hours prior to the meeting and file said application with the Board Services Office. No citizens are signed up to speak before the Committee of the Whole. We will begin with item A, report on FY 2025 budget development, Board Budget Workshop number 3, overview of budget topics and preliminary forecast. This is a report item. No action is required. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees. This item, as you indicated, is to continue the workshop for the budget planning and to discuss the development process that is underway. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I invite Mr. Hines to present the workshop materials.
Thank you, Chancellor, Madam Chairman, trustees. Just remind you that this is our workshop number 3 for this fiscal year 25 development. In workshop 3, we'll present safety and security. I've got Bob McCracken. He'll be up here in a few minutes to talk about one of the new major initiatives. Last month we had Farrell Prestige with intellectual technology. And fees preliminary, unrestricted, we need to vote on that today. That'll occur after this. And then we expect to get some guidance from the board as we go through this. And this is what makes the process work so well. So I highlighted that line because I think it's important that we get feedback from the board. We're looking more at details, discussions this time than we did in workshop number 2, different topics as well. Then reminder that we'll be submitting the budget in June for approval at the Committee of the Whole, and then the affirmation and vote in the regular meeting in June. So final budget for 25 approval will be in June. That's why we need to be tightened up and ready to go by then. There's no board meeting in March, so that puts our next meeting in April. We'll be at workshop number 4. And we'll conclude improvements from compensation, and we've got a report and a consultant in that will be there, and Izzy Anderson will be here on the April meeting for that. And so basically we have about 3.5 more months until that June vote. So I wanted to make that clear so everybody kind of understood the timeline as we go through. And again, bottom line here, our vision statement remains the same. How we get there, though, and how HCC accomplishes that vision has changed. And HCC will have to continue to evolve because our environment continues to evolve around us. And I want to walk you through the calendar just quickly. So today we'll talk about trends, topics, budget forecast number 1, which you'll see. That's the last slide we'll pull up today. The enrollment targets that we have, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about our competitors, a few slides on competition and discussion on that. Also talk about tuition and fee schedules, and then safety and security initiative with Bob. Then in March, we've got the break, and then again, we'll be back. But then also looking down at the bottom right-hand corner, September, We'll be holding a public hearing if needed. We wanted just to have a hearing for that and no vote on the ad valorem tax. So I'll bring up Bob McCracken at this time to talk to you about safety and security projects. This is one of the new major initiatives that we're asking to budget in the fiscal year 25 budget. And so that's why it's so important to go through these 4 items. And I try them doing 1 or 2 a meeting. So Bob, if you'd come on up, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Chancellor, trustees. Good afternoon. As we talk through the safety and security projects, I just kind of want to start with a reminder. This is not going to get into the very kind of specific details of particular projects that needs to be addressed in closed session, and we're scheduled to come back to the board in April with some more details on a couple of these projects. But I wanted to kind of lay out the groundwork. So for those of you who may not be aware, there's a couple of regulatory requirements. Texas Education Code 37.108 and .1109 establish the safety and security standards for educational institutions, including junior colleges, and they establish the Texas School Safety Center as the regulatory body that has oversight over those criteria. In each of the last several legislative sessions, they've expanded the number of requirements in the actual code, but in addition to that, the Texas School Safety Center has expanded upon the code and taken an item of roughly like a dozen requirements and expanded it out to be over 864 standards as we currently stand. In 2024, for the first time, they separated the tools used to evaluate K through 12 schools from the one to evaluate junior colleges, which is very significant. So they go on a 3-year cycle. 1 year is charter schools, the next year is public schools, and then the following year is junior colleges, and then they repeat the cycle. In previous years, we were using the same tool that was used by K through 12 schools, which meant there were a lot of things that don't align very well. For instance, visitor sign-in, all the students arriving at the same time. It's illegal for children to leave school once they arrive. Those kinds of things just really didn't fit. So they separated out the standards. So as we work our way through the audit tool this year, because this is the year that we do our review, what we will be able to do is better identify what the real expectations are for junior colleges, because they have stripped out the requirements that were for K through 12 only. Those requirements, when you look through them, they include most of the requirements around emergency notifications, communication system, and environmental designs and access control that are included for K through 12 with a few exceptions. So they're still very similar. Additionally, there's been an evolving standard, not just from the regulatory side, but from the society side. We had an incident at Lakewood Church this weekend that, interestingly enough, may not actually even count in the statistics towards mass shootings for this year because there were not 4 or more victims. But we know the incident occurred and we know that had an impact. While we have been in this meeting, there's been reports that there was a shooting at the parade for the Kansas City Chiefs Super Bowl. Reportedly at least 1 dead, multiple injured. I'm sure we'll get more details on that. It has become an all too frequent occurrence where we have to worry about these things that we didn't really think about at all 15 years ago or 20 years ago, and certainly not when some of our buildings were designed 30, 40, 50, close to over 100 years ago in some cases. And so the requirements have continued to evolve and change. We will continue to have to address those as we go through. We've made a ton of administrative changes over the last 5 years in terms of limiting access to buildings. These changes have mostly been driven by the college presidents as they try to manage their campuses in a way that's different than what they used to. That kind of free and open access, they've had to kind of restrict that without changing the overall quality of the environment. But modifying building hours and adjusting the patrol patterns from the police department, increasing emergency response training and drills and exercises. Our emergency operations plan continues to get larger. As Mr. Corrigan mentioned, we had a review this past fall. We will have a review every year of that by the state. Each year they review a separate section of the plan. And so that wasn't the whole plan they reviewed, but it was certain sections. And what we've really tried to do identify for budget purposes is those high priority physical plant and security infrastructure projects that we know take a lot of time and money to implement. So as we work through the priorities, number one is the impact on people, right? So ultimately what we're trying to do is make sure that students and staff have a safe learning environment. And so we really focus on the physical safety of the people on campus as kind of the primary objective. Obviously we have to comply with regulatory requirements. And we try to take a look at the lessons learned from other incidents at other locations so that we can apply what applies to us. It's really important to recognize that these systems are interdependent. Security is not one thing, it's layers of things, and it's multiple things, and it's a recognition that ultimately people are involved, and anytime you have people involved, things will be missed, and so you have to have kind of multiple ways to halt things as you build your layers. And we're a large system. When we talk about 19 campuses, 60 buildings where we're doing educational activities in, over 85 buildings when you include some of the other buildings, physical plant buildings, parking garages, et cetera. It takes a lot of time to install a system across that kind of scale. So one of the things that we've recognized over the last couple of years is that these projects are large in scope and they're not always clear where they lie. So for instance, if we talk about security cameras, the primary user is the police department, but the primary installer, designer, and maintainer of the system is IT. If you talk about things like building locks, the primary user are faculty and college operations staff, but the designer, installer, and maintenance is facilities. And so the challenge becomes, from a budgeting perspective, where's the money? Because the facilities department may not have prioritized that, whereas the faculty and the campus operations don't have the budget for that because it's another department. So part of what we're trying to do this year is make sure that we're pulling those projects together in a way that makes sense, putting them into the budget so that we have a planned pool of money that can be used to fund those projects. And then as those projects are being done, they come through the normal procurement process. And so if it's a larger contract that needs a board approval, the contract comes to the board so you know who's doing what work for how much money. And then the board has the opportunity to approve that. But so we've got trying to get the money into the budget, and then we bring the projects forward kind of just through the normal procurement process. That list of projects, and we'll talk about kind of the big ones on it in a moment, is going to continue to evolve. As we kick off here in the next couple of weeks doing our review of the Texas School Safety Center standards for all of our campuses, during the course of that, I'm sure we're going to find some things that move up the priority list and get added to the list. But as we stand now, these are the big projects that we're talking about. So we have the classroom and office lock upgrades. We'll be presenting to the board in April. Some details on that with a lot more detail. Public address system enhancement, panic alarm system enhancements and upgrades. The idea is fundamentally, when we talk about protecting people, is the people most immediately at risk or the ones at the scene. And so you have to be able to notify them very quickly, and then they have to have the means to protect themselves, which is text messaging is great, but it takes time. And during mass events with a lot of people, text messaging systems do tend to slow down, and you get kind of gaps in information. There's also the issue that frequently students and faculty turn off their phones or silence them in meetings such as this, so you may not know you got the message. And then we have the infrastructure behind all of this stuff. Ultimately, to upgrade access control systems, you have to upgrade the IT infrastructure that lies behind it. And then we have a couple of other projects related to campus lighting assessment and blue phones. Blue phones are one of those technologies that used to all be landlines, which are very expensive to install, also very difficult to maintain. So there's some newer technologies now that gives us the opportunity to upgrade that. So any questions?
Okay, we talked about today also having to approve tuition and fees. And so I'd like to invite Norma Perez to come up with me as well.
Mr. Hines, could you wait just one moment?
Yes.
Before you guys get started, I just want to ask the trustees if it's okay if we combine items B, C, D, and E. Is that correct? He's still on item A? Oh, I thought he called up for the next item.
I'm getting ready to.
Oh, okay. All right, I'm jumping the gun.
So
Back up.
I thought we would kind of conclude this, the workshop 3 and go to this item.
Yeah, she thought we had moved on beyond A.
No, I understand.
Right, so
Yes.
continue.
Okay. So we have a lot to unpack on this today, but we can also do this, the balance of it at the regular meeting. And that's what I would request, that we go back to this slide. And just remind you that, we have a calendar to follow, and we're here, and we're not going to have the meeting in March as discussed. And we can pick this up at the next meeting, the regular meeting this month in February. So we're ready to close out this item if you'd like.
Madam Chair, if it's okay, Mr. Hines, let me clarify again. She believed your workshop 3 was concluded. And so because she saw Dr. Perez walking up, psychologically, we were moving on to item B.
I totally understand.
So continue.
We
We're
weren't
not in a
rushing
rush.
you.
We want you to
weren't
get
cutting
through
you off.
everything. We're going to give you all the time you need.
Okay? We'll continue on.
So, Mr. Hines, are you going to bring closure to your presentation now? And for the next presentation, perhaps we will be able to give a more extended view. I agree that you had given a high-level overview, and if there are additional comments that you would like to make, please proceed with that. Okay, very good. And then we will go to the next item.
Okay. I'm going to include a lot of this. This one section I wanted to get everybody to walk away with is that, these are maps and the gain and losses we have in the different zip codes, looking at our competition. And in the left-hand border, you'll see Lone Star is one of our competitors, has Cypress Center up on right off of 290 that competes mightily with our Katy new campus, which is doing extremely well. And this is about our competition coming close to our borders. You see the new San Jacinto Generation Park on the right-hand side of the yellow box. They're very closest to North Forest. If you look at when they opened in fall of 2020, they're a full-service campus there. They're not a partial. They're not an outpost. They're a full-service campus. They're up to 3,000 students that quickly in 3 years period. So they're drawing, on our borders there. And you can see here, this is a little difficult to outline, but the first inner black line, the dark black line, that's our district. And then the black line beyond that is our service area. And you can see the bluer the color, the higher the growth of enrollment opportunities in those areas. So we have some inside our district, some right outside our service area. And it also shows all the colleges that exist. If you study this map a little more in detail, you'll see there's 7 colleges that we compete with. We always talk about 2, but there's 5 others out there as well. And this is just a rough briefing on what each of these campuses look like on our northern border. That's Lone Star. And then we look at the competitor strategy analysis. We must monitor our competition outside the task district and service area. We talked at the last workshop about what we do with our delta between our tuition for out of district and tuition for in district. You've got tuition rates that retain in-district enrollment nearby boundaries, beyond the boundaries, and entice out those out-of-districts into our area. And I will go ahead and stop here. I have a very detailed presentation to go through. We'll just move most of that to the second meeting, which will be the regular meeting of this month, and that'll be in plenty of time. But we would like to, and so I'd like to close out this presentation now.
Appreciate it. I have one comment. Thank you for the detailed work, because not only is Lone Star operating on our borders, they're actually operating within our districts.
Yes.
And they are aggressively operating within our 9 districts. So that's something we need to look at.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marshall, and we were not rushing you. We appreciate your report, we really do.
No, I'm
Thank you.
just trying to.
All right. So, again, I say, are you okay with B, C, D, and E being combined?
Madam Chair, I move that you're done, Mr. Hines?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I move that we combine items B, C, D, and E for simultaneous consideration.
Second.
If there's unanimous, I think the chair requested unanimous consent. So if there's no objection, then we proceed as though they are combined. So the motion would be to consider items B, C, D, and E. And that will open discussion on those 4 items together.
Okay.
Are there any discussions on the items? Okay.
Well, I want to make sure we have the right motion though first before we
Correct.
start.
So it's, the chair's move for unanimous consent for consideration of items B, C, D, and E. I hereby move items B, C, D, and E for consideration.
Okay.
Second.
Okay.
So now, we're ready. Discussion first, they said no. You said no. Okay, no discussion.
Oh, sorry.
Trustee Laredo, you had something to say? No?
I was just coughing.
Oh, okay. We
Nope,
you feel
that's
better.
good. That's great, and I'm glad we're holding down the line for the students and the waivers and all, so that's great.
Madam Chair, I have one comment. I would like to, in voting on these is one issue, but another issue I'd like to bring up in the future is some tuition waivers for healthcare in the future. So I would like to, I think we were looking at some numbers and all that. I'd like to make certain everyone knows that that doesn't preclude us having those waivers in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, we're prepared to vote.
So the voting is to consent approval of items B, C, D, and E.
Correct.
Voting is yes for me, Sharon Eva Laredo.
Can you turn your camera on, please?
That's a yes for me too. Okay. Start my video.
Yes.
And
Trustee Johnson who received, Trustee Laredo
that's a
received.
yes.
Okay.
Yes for me.
Trustee Tamaz? Due to the camera not being on, we will mark Dr. Tamaz absent for the vote. The motion passed with a vote of 7-0.
There a motion to approve item F, monthly investment report, financial statement, and budget review for December 2023? Is there? Okay, it has been moved and second. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you, Madam Chair, trustees. This item is presented to you for your consideration to approve the monthly investment report, financial statement, and budget review for December 2023 with your permission, Madam Chair, I invite Senior Vice Chancellor Hines to present the report. Mr. Hines. The monthly investment report.
Hello again. So welcome to the fourth month of fiscal year 24. It's 1/3 of the fiscal year that we're going through today. And that's what these numbers are based on. So it's 33 1/3% of this year. As you see on the top major bullet there, our focuses that are key for us: recruitment, enrollment, financial aid, retention, student success support and measurement and metrics of that, marketing, and absolutely focus HB 8 state appropriations, documented funding success. Our main revenue sources remain very effective for us. We're moving into the collection period for taxes. If people are now paying their taxes, they're paying a 7% penalty after January 31st. Tuition enrollment continues to climb, and we're seeing that, and you'll see the numbers in a moment. State appropriations are performing well. They just have a different payment schedule. We're still awaiting our first fast payment for the fall semester, but we're assured that it's coming. Investment earnings continue to rock along. December 23, we're at $1.428 million, 5.744 year to date. Weighted average return of 5.303%. And rates remain elevated still and stable. Looking through these bullet points, we had workshop number 3. Was a little truncated today. It'll be longer as we move forward going into the next meeting. Ad valorem taxes, we've collected December 23, 31st, $27.3 million. Don't be alarmed by that number. HCAT is very slow. The tax assessor is very slow in processing the invoices that come in and the payments. And so we'll see that wrap up real quick, and we'll probably have all the money in our pockets within April or so. So it's a move that meets the same schedule as the prior years. HCAT tax base now certified at $286 billion. That's a 10.2% increase over last year's $255 billion. Tuition fees collected to date are 82.9 or 77.9% because we already collected 100% of fall. We've collected 100% of spring, and we're starting to get payments in on summer. Tuition fees, if you look at the number for the extended learning, up about 10.2%. We had no tuition recommendations for increase this year, so I appreciate your support on that. State appropriations received a total to date $32.5 million for our first payment on a total budget of $68.6 million. Unduplicated enrollment, you see right there, $1,500 over. HCC investment income, again, we're still walking along compared to December 22 at $914,000 for the same period last year. Skipping down a little bit, actual salaries for FY24, 76.3% or 32.3%. So if you compare the 33.3% where we are in the year, and you look at the 32.3% on that line item, we're right on schedule. Couldn't get much closer than that. Current forecast, our investment revenues exceeded 100% of budget. We'll continue to do that more so by the end of the fiscal year. You look at the administration, we'll visit the Board of Trustees regarding the forecasted budget surplus to consider. We're going to have a surplus this year as well, and we'll bring that up. You just heard Bob McCracken talk about safety and security, IT infrastructures last month. Deferred maintenance, additional funding requirements for that, website replacement, and then some remainder, still enough to go around to add to our current fund balance. And then HCC must continually, strategically, intentionally work to reduce that deferred maintenance, and it continues to grow with the inflation that we've had. Looking at the grants, 120-day grant closeout for HERF, we're through with that except for one project at West Loop that's in process, and that's targeted. There's more details on that in the bullet below. The dual credit waiver strategy is still working for us. I mentioned we're going to get our first fast payment just any day now. The travel moratorium is now in place, and everybody's adopting that. We no longer have a hiring chill. We're strategically looking at positions because there are places we need to grow. There are pieces that we may not need to grow. So this is not just a blanket chill across the system. And the external auditor procurement is in process. Next page, looking at multiple shared services at camper leadership, moving aligned strategies to improve student success and HB8. And we look at the hold harmless. We still have that in effect for fiscal year 25 as we do for this fiscal year. We've got the multi-pronged approach going across student success, state appropriations and revenue. HCC compensation consultant Gallagher was engaged. They are here and working with Izzy Anderson. They will present at the workshop number 4 in April. And so you'll hear a lot about compensation across the system and what's going on in the rest of the world in terms of education. Feds have had their soft landing. They had a good December. We did not have a recession. They have not raised the rates. They have not dropped the rates. So I think they're still studying. Last interest rate, hard to believe, was back in July. Gold is still up a little bit, and crude is a little bit over $75 a barrel this morning. So Houston's economy is still doing very strong. And then homes, we continue to watch this. The thing I'm watching the most is that last bullet one, the last line, 21 months of declining home sales. So even though they're selling less and less homes every month, we still have not seen a real drop in prices, because if you look in the middle, there's a very low 3.3 month of supply of inventory. That continues to build our tax base, but remember, only 10% of our tax base are homeowners. The rest of them are commercial, residential, retail, and petrochemical. Social Security Administration announced their 3.2% cost of living adjustment for 24 payments, so that's kind of a good bellwether of what the feds are thinking about, what's going on next year in terms of inflation. So I went through that pretty quick. I do want to go to a couple of slides back here. Next time you see this report, we're going to add a red, yellow, and green traffic light. So it makes it easier for people to glance at this and say what's a problem and what's not. The thing I can show you is that we're well in all those categories, and I will point out to you, and one of the things to remember, a true balanced budget, and I would have said this in the budget report, is that we can pay our expenses, we can use our money effectively, we have student success, we are the college of choice, but we can also go to each year and pay for our operating expenses, like, for example, portions each year for deferred maintenance, for safety and security, those things, so that we don't have to come back and ask for fund balance to do that. And we're going to have another surplus this year. And again, we'll probably come back to this board later this year, and we know that we've got everything covered. We'd like to see a contribution towards those from a budget amendment to cover some of that. But you can see how strong our revenue is. I mean, tuition fees is coming on strong, taxes are strong. We're going to see how far we get in state appropriations, but we're going to do better than we have in the past. That's a no-brainer. And then expenses, you can look there, the total expense line, we're at 31.5%, and we're in the 33.3% of the year. So we're moving along. Not all of those are aligned. Some are very seasonal. Some are also timed. For example, risk management, we pay our premiums twice a year. And so we pay them in big lump sums. And then like utilities, we're not following along with that with only 30%, but it's hotter in the summer, et cetera, so we spend more there. So I'll stop there. If there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Are there any questions? No questions.
All right. Thank you very much.
Trustee Johnson?
Yes. My vote's yes. Trustee Laredo.
Receive.
Yes. Yes, for me, this is Adriana Temez.
Okay, received. The motion passed with a vote of 8-0.
Thank you.
Item G, report on metrics for strategic plan embracing Houston's future. This is a report item. No action is required. Dr. Ford Fisher will introduce the item.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, trustees. This item presents proposed key performing indicators and targets for the strategic plan, Embracing Houston's Future. With your permission, Madam Chair, I'd like to ask Vice Chancellor Andrea Burridge to present the item. Dr. Burridge?
Thank you, Madam Chair, trustees, and Madam Chancellor. I'm here today to discuss metrics for the strategic plan. As you know, a strategic plan is meant to drive organizational change and improvement in the service of our students and our community. Our strategic plan is grounded in 5 strategic priorities as set by the Board of Trustees. They're student success, personalized learning, academic rigor, community investment, and college of choice. As we move forward in streamlining our strategic plan, it is critical to set key performance indicators, or KPIs, that allow HCC to monitor our progress on achieving our goals. This table, which we will discuss in more detail, first lays out the current metrics, which are above the line. These are primarily focused on student success and were selected before the current formula funding changes. Below the lines are proposed additions, which reflect House Bill 8 funding changes and address personalized learning, academic rigor, community investment, and college of choice. In the discussion of the KPIs, it's important to consider the cohorts that the federal government, the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, and HCC use in their calculations. Federal sites use including College Navigator, use the IPEDS data, which is the Integrated Post-Secondary Data System cohorts. These students are first-time in college, full-time students entering in the fall, and it's used on federal websites. This is also the cohort that SAC-COC uses when they look at our graduation rates. However, it's a very limited cohort. There are about 4,000 students in our IPEDS cohort every year, so most of the time HCC uses a more expansive cohort when we look at our metrics. HCC has been a member of Achieving the Dream since 2004 and is a leader college. Achieving the Dream is a national organization that supports colleges in using evidence-based practices in the service of student success. When we look at our progress, HCC uses a larger cohort, which is all degree-seeking, new to HCC students, both full and part-time, and both first-time in college and transfer in. And for comparison, this cohort of entering students is about 12,000 students, which is more than 3 times the IPEDS cohort. If you look at our students who are in HCC, they are essentially students who have entered in the last 4 or 5 Achieving the Dreams cohorts. So as you combine data across Achieving the Dream cohorts, you include most of our students. That is not true for the IPEDS cohorts. So the first priority is student success. So the metrics we use for this are fairly standard with one exception. We use retention rates, transfer rates, and completion rates, all of which are reported by HCC, the state, and the federal government, so they're very visible metrics. The fourth metric is growing in use and is noted on this chart as fall-to-fall retention plus completion plus transfer. A lot of times this is referred to as a positive outcome rate because it looks at the students who enter HCC and 1 year later have something positive going on. They're still enrolled, or they've completed a short-term credential, or they've earned enough hours to successfully transfer to a 4-year institution. This rate, as you'll see, is higher than the retention-only rate, but it does indicate that students have reached their goals in important ways. On this priority, as on all the others, the targets are very aggressive and not for a single year. In truth, progress on many of the metrics, especially our lagging metrics, is limited by the policies and practices of the past. What happens 3 years ago is affecting our graduation rate now. And for that reason, the time frame for these metrics were chosen to be the time frames over which we might reasonably expect to start to see some change. So we would expect to see change first on the fall-to-fall retention, and then that flows through to graduation and transfer rates. The second strategic priority is personalized learning. This priority is about the way HCC personalizes student supports, seeking to understand students' goals, strengths, and challenges so that students are empowered with the agency they need to proceed. The KPI we are proposing here is the percent of students who earn some credit hours, at least one successful course during their long semesters. We presented this data in detail about a year ago, as it was a metric that the Texas Success Center urged us to consider. When we first looked at this, about 1 in 8 students, over 6,000 a term, entered HCC and earned absolutely no credit hours. This was a wake-up call for us and something we immediately started to work on. And you'll see that in less than a year, we've decreased the no credit, increased the credit rate by 2%, which adds up to over 700 students. So we've made substantial progress on this, and we propose to continue tracking it. It's also, importantly, like retention and completion, a leading measure, and it's measured every semester, and most importantly, from students' first terms. Our third priority is academic rigor. This is about the quality of students' learning expenses and gaining the knowledge, skills, abilities, and dispositions they need to reach their goals, succeed at HCC, and then at their next institutions or the workforce. For rigor, we propose to use job placement, which is the rate at which our students are placed in jobs or enroll in additional education, CEU credentials of value, which looks at students earning short-term credentials that are workforce relevant, and licensure rate, which is one of the few measures we have externally for what happens in our classrooms. So these measures really do address the rigor of the preparation of our students. The fourth strategic priority is community investment, which reflects partnering with key constituents such as the school districts, business, and industry. For this reason, the KPIs, proposed KPIs, which mirror House Bill 8 performance-based funding metrics, are dual credit students reaching 15 hours and completion in high-demand field. And again, high-demand fields are the fields that are needed by the Houston economy, by the Gulf Coast, and so this is a natural choice for community investment. Our fifth strategic priority is college of choice. In some sense, our performance on all of the metrics previously discussed establish us as a college of choice. So to measure this metric, we propose to incorporate our student, faculty, staff, and community voices into the tracking of this priority. Notably for students, we use our Community College Survey of Student Engagement, which is our CESI. The last time we do the CESI about once every 2 years, most recently in 2022. And at that point, we lagged the groups of extra-large community colleges and all community colleges and how students would rate their educational experience overall. We will re-administer it again this year and then again in 2026. We also, every 2 years, administer a staff survey to look at staff satisfaction and faculty satisfaction with HCC, and we intend to develop a index of satisfaction for our community, potentially looking at employers, utilizing our advisory boards and our transfer partners, and we hope to have a baseline of that for you within the next year. Putting it all together, we propose to keep the KPIs that we've been using in the past and propose additional KPIs to better measure priorities 2 through 5. These priorities include a few more leading measures and also reflect the changes due to House Bill 8 with the focus on student outcomes and credential of value. The lead metrics will allow us to monitor our ongoing work, which will allow us to adjust and adapt as needed, accelerating our progress toward these important goals aimed at supporting our students and our communities. Thank you. Questions?
Are there any questions, trustees? John?
Thank you so much again for pulling this great work together. I really enjoyed reading through it, and I apologize for sending a longer list of questions earlier today. So I'll restrain my comments right now to just 3, which I think are pertinent for the broader group. One is I think it would be very helpful for this body to discuss our performance on these, our projected performance on these metrics versus our peer group, our large urban peers across the state. I don't know if that would be an April discussion or maybe even further down in the path, but Trustee Vanderbilt-Stallworth had a great example before around dual credit enrollment and the great work being done in Dallas, and having those sorts of grounding data points as we both finalize the strategic plan as well as the budget, I think would be just helpful for broader alignment and community engagement. Second, I think there are some metrics, whether or not they're officially strategic plan metrics or just metrics that we talk about as a board more frequently, that I think would be helpful, again, to tracking the success of our students in and out of our institution. One, which I know that we have challenges getting ready access to this data, is successful graduation from a four-year institution after students transfer from our institution. I know when we discussed this data earlier this year, the latest cohort data we were able to get from the coordinating board was in 2016. I know there are efforts underway to try and get an updated version of that, and greatly appreciate those efforts, but I think that would be helpful to bring up more frequently than we envision in this report. A second item is another point that Trustee Vanderbilt-Stallworth has brought up in the past, which is encouraging our dual credit students in high school to enroll earlier in the process. So tracking how many students enroll in freshman and sophomore years in high school versus just those that successfully achieve 15 credit hours, I think would be, again, a very helpful metric on how well our recruitment and marketing efforts are happening, really where we can ensure that those students have adequate time to earn those 15 hours through their tenure in the dual credit system. So I'll stop filibustering at that point. Just wanted to share that with the broader group.
These are outstanding statistics. This is an excellent statistical analysis of where we are versus where we need to be, so that we have a clear understanding of what to do with our current state and how we're going to enhance that state, that current state, not just geographically, but population demographic-wise, because we are missing a very large demographic population in this document, and it has to be addressed for us to grow. So thank you. This is excellent.
Madam Chair. The devil's in the details. And as a board member, in my mind, those details are left up to the chancellor and the staff here at the college. It's good to have that information as a roadmap to know where we're at, where we've been. But to me, I'm a simple man. Student success is student enrollment, student retention, and student completion. If all of that fits into that model, that's where I'm at and where I think the direction. And then with the strategic plan, we as a board have to align the budget to fund that plan so that we can come to completion and be successful. So I thank the staff and the administration for all the work they've done in that, and the faculty. I thank the faculty for all they've done, and their new faculty president this year. So it's been a great participation by a lot of people, and I thank you.
Thank you for that great comment. Any other comments or questions? Okay, the meeting of the Committee of the Whole is adjourned at
5:11 p.m.
Got 4 minutes.
You're cleaning up your helicopter.